Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael, and today I thought we'd do something a little different. We've got planting season going on now, and a lot of folks have already had their plants already in the ground, their vegetables and things that they're going to be putting into their backyard gardens and things. And I was thinking about some of the memories I had when I was a kid of my parents. My mom and dad had a little garden out beside the house that they used to put tomato vines and peppers and things in the yard. And my uncle, he lived very close to us, and he had a big backyard, and he would plant a lot of plants and things, and we would get ready every summer to get ready to start putting up tomatoes and green beans and peppers and things. And I wanted to kind of bring some of that into this video to kind of show you some of the things. If you've never canned before, then a lot of this will be new to you, and I hope it will be informative, that you'll use that and be inspired to go out and get you some vegetables. If you've got some growing in your yard, maybe make some small batches and you can put some things away for the season when the vegetables and things start coming in. So I know my sister and I, when we were kids, my mom and dad and uncle would bring in the green beans, and I remember sitting out on the porch or in the backyard on the picnic table with a big old pan of green beans, and we would have to snap the beans and pull the ends off of them and get ready for those for the canning. And then the tomatoes and things, we'd have to start helping with those things. So I'm going to go through some of these tools that we've got here, and if you've canned in the past and maybe have forgotten about it, or you watched your parents do it, and maybe some of these things and tips and techniques that we're going to talk about today will help you and maybe re-inspire you to get those canning things out and do some canning this summer. So you might ask me, why would we want to do that? Because it's just as easy as convenience just to go to the store and pick up the things. And it is. A lot of people can just go to the store and pick up pickles and pick up the tomatoes already in the cans, and it is a lot easier. But if you've ever had a homegrown tomato and you've ever had one that was ever canned at home, the taste is just so much different than what you get in the stores. So that is what I want to kind of bring back with this, is those memories that I had, and hopefully some that you've had also. And like I said, if you've never canned before, then this will be all good for you to take some of this information. And I'm going to be doing a series on canning, so we will get to see how some of these things do, and I'll share some of my recipes of how I can some of the items that we're going to be doing. So first off, we're going to start with water bath canning and pressure canning. That's two different types of canning. So water bath canning, here I've got a water bath canner. This is a 21 quart water bath canner. You can get this one like this. This one is stainless steel, or you can get the granite ones that are black in the stores. You can see those. They both work the same. You just have to be really careful with the granite ones because they will chip very easily. I know that some of the ones I've had over the years, I'll put them away for the season and get them back the next year and realize there's a big chip in it. It's got a big rust spot, and we don't want that into anything that we're going to be making, so those get thrown away. So I've got a stainless steel one now, and this is a 21 quart one, and this has the little insert on the inside of it that you can put your jars and things on when you're getting ready to put your jars in here to water bath can those. So this will hold your jars, and then you put it down into the water, put your lid on it, put that on the stove, and we will go through some of those recipes in the future. But this is water bath canning. This is used for mostly for foods that have acidity to them. So like tomatoes, if you're doing any kind of pickles, anything like that, you definitely want to use water bath canning, and we'll go through some of those recipes in the future. Now with the pressure canner, this one is a little different. It looks the same. This is a 23 quart pressure canner, and it has a little ring in the bottom of it here that you set your jars on. You definitely want to keep that in there so that when you put the jars in there, you don't have any bubbling in it that could possibly break your jars. So you've got your regulator here on the top, and that just comes off. And then when you get ready to can, you put your jars in, seal it down on the top, put it on your stove, and then you cook it. Cook your things like you're normally going to put those away. So we'll do some pressure canning in the future in some more videos, and I'll show you how this works. But I wanted to show you the two different types here and what they were used for. You're more than likely going to use the water bath canner over the pressure canner if you do tomatoes, like I said, or pickles or anything like that that's got acidity to them. So we'll be moving on from that, and we'll talk about some of the tools. So you might have one of these little funnels at home, and these work really good. And this is a quart jar that I've got here, and I've got a pint and a half pint. So we've got the three different sizes that we do that. Typically with your tomatoes and things, what we did, we would put them in quarts, but now that I've gotten older, I like the pint size ones because a lot of the recipes that I use will say 14.5 ounces of tomatoes, and that's about roughly what one of these jars of processed tomatoes are. So it's just easier if you're making one recipe to put them in the pints, but definitely if you're going to double recipes and things, definitely you can have the quart size. You just want to make sure that what you've got, you probably have one of these at home, and you might have one that might be a little bit wider on the bottom, but if you're using a smaller jar opening on these, you definitely want to make sure that it's going to fit down in it. You see that's got a perfect fit. If you've got a wider one, it might not fit down into this smaller mouth jar on this one here. So definitely check that out before you get started into your process to see if your funnel is going to fit down into your jar. So most of them come like this, but you might have one that's a little bit wider, so just be careful with that. Now this one that we're going to be looking at here is going to be a little bit different than that one. This has some measurements on the side of it, and this is going to measure headspace for your food. So what that is, when you're looking at your jars, is you're typically going to pack your food in your jar, and down to this first little circle here on the bottom, that's about 1/2 inch from the top. So different foods have different headspaces so that the air in it when you're processing it can expand and your food will be preserved inside of the container. So like your jellies and things might be 1/4 inch, and then your tomatoes might be 1/2 inch. So depending on the recipe, they're talking about headspace on this and how much space you leave between the top here where the very top of the jar is. So this tool here will do that. So it is a funnel, and it's got markings here on the side that's 1/4, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and on the side here it's got millimeters, 5, 10, 15, and 20 millimeters. So that goes down on the side, and then I'll hold this up here, you can see it. So you can kind of gauge what this looks like. So as you can see here that this is a 1/4 inch down, 1/2 inch down, 3/4 down, where that is. So depending on what you are canning, you definitely want to check the recipe to make sure that the headspace is correct, because different foods have different things. So this is one way you can see it. You can hold it up and look at it, or get down on the side when you're filling up your things to make sure that you've got the proper headspace on it. So that is the two funnels that I have here. I also have another tool here that you can use to measure headspace with. So this is a debubbler, and this debubbler has the markings on it here. You can see these little ridges on the side. I'll hold it up so you can see on the side. This is 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and 1 inch. So you can use this. Also, you put this down and that rests on the top. So the first one is 1/4, and then it goes down to 1/2, 3/4, 1 inch. So depending on what you are measuring for the recipe you're looking at, you can do it that way also. So if you don't have one of these funnels, you can get one of these. These are fairly cheap. And the other side of it is for the debubbler. So once you pack your food in your jar, and we'll go through that some of the recipes in the future, sometimes you might get air pockets and air bubbles in the food when you're putting it in there, and you want to get that out of there, because once it starts processing, that air will come up to the top and is going to escape, and that's what's going to give you your seal. You might notice that your food might not be where it was sitting when you put it in the jar. It might be maybe 1 inch lower, 1/2 inch lower where it was, and that's because there was air pockets on the inside of it. So you take this debubbler, take this side of it here, and you put it in the jar, and you just kind of move it around in the food, and that kind of breaks any air pockets that you might have down in there, so that the food settles and your brine settles, or whatever liquid that you've got in it comes to the right measurement on the top when you do that. So this is the 2-in-1 combo. This again is for measuring headspace, and this other side here is for a debubbler that you can use it for. This tool here is called a lid lifter. This has a little magnet on the side of it, and once you get your lids clean and you've got them resting and they're in a sterile place, you don't want to touch them again, you can use one of these, and what this does is this just attaches to it and it just picks it up. You don't have to touch it then and expose anything on the bottom, and then you just pop it on the top and it is ready to go. So this is another handy tool. I know when we were growing up, we didn't have these. We used a fork, and that could potentially damage this ring that's on the underside here. So you definitely don't want to do that. But we never had any problem with them. But if you don't have one of these, just be careful when you're picking these up that you know, if you're not touching with your hand, keeping them clean, and that you're using something that you can pick them up with. So this tool works really good, and it just attaches and pops on very easy like that, and you can put your band on the top of it. So this ladle is something else that I found that I really like. If you don't have one of these, you've got a ladle that works too, just as well. This one is really nice because this has a thing for the side, and I'm just going to demonstrate here on this jar. If I had it inside of my pot that I had my food in, like I had cooked my tomatoes in, you could rest this on the inside. That way, after you scoop your tomatoes up, you can hook it on the inside and you don't get tomatoes all over the counter and everything like that. So this is a pretty nice little tool here, but definitely this is one of those niceties that you have. If you don't have one of these, just a ladle works very well when you're ladling your food into your jars for processing. So this comes in handy also. You definitely want something that's going to be able to lift your jars up. Tongs, I've seen a lot of people use tongs, and just be really careful with those because they could slip and fall. I don't recommend doing those and break, and you don't want that to happen. So this is a jar lifter, and it's got a little rubber piece here on the bottom, solid plastic, and this clips along the bottom, and you can lift it up and you can put it in your canner, or you can take it out of your canner once you get your product processed and it is ready to go. And that way you're not burning your hands, because this stuff coming out of these processors is boiling hot. So you want something that you can pick it up with. This is nice. This has a little groove on the side of it that kind of catches that bottom lip on this glass jar here. So just kind of goes through that. You're not really doing anything with it. It's secure, it's spring loaded, and I really like this one. I'll put the link in the description box below this one also. So you can definitely get one of those. Now if you've canned in the past, you know you can use the rings again. That is the only thing that you can use. You want to make sure that your rings are in good shape. A lot of times you'll put these up and you'll come back next season, there might be some rust spots on them. Throw those out. Those aren't any good anymore. These are the lids, and once you have used these, these go in the trash. They are not to be used again. That way you get a perfect seal on your jar. You're not compromising the gasket that's here on the bottom. And sometimes when you use an opener to open them up with, you might bend them. So you're not going to get a real good seal. It's just use them once, throw them away. They're really cheap. You can go to the store and get them. I've got a box of them here. This is a box of 12 wide mouth lids. Make sure you pick up the ones that's going to fit your jars. They make a small mouth lid and a wide mouth lid. This is from Bosch. And so this is the wide ones. And they look just like this in the box. And you want to replace these when you're doing your canning every year. But you can use your rings if they're in good shape and you don't have any rust on them, then definitely use these again. If you want new rings and lids, you can get a box of these. These have the lid and the ring in it. So you've got these. These are wide mouth lids and rings for your jars, and they come in the two sizes. They come in the small we saw here, and the bigger one that we've got here on this quart jar and this pint jar here. So definitely, if you need both and your rings are in pretty bad shape, or if you just don't want to keep the rings, you can throw them away and get new ones. These are fairly cheap as well when they get the combo on them. But you can reuse these if they're in really good shape. So now you've got your food prepared and you don't want to can it because you want to eat it immediately right away. You can definitely do that. If you don't want to use these, once you cook your food and you've got it in your jars and you're just going to put it in your refrigerator to keep, you can definitely use one of these little plastic lids here. I've got two different styles here. This one is a wide mouth, and this fits on these wider jars. And these are nice. You can wash them and they go right on the jar, and you keep them in the refrigerator. And you can use those when you open up a jar and you're not going to use the whole thing. You can use that if you want to. And also they come in the smaller size also here. So I've got one here that fits on the smaller jars, and it just screws right on the top of it. So if you're not planning on canning it and you're going to make your jams or your jellies, you're going to put just a few tomatoes away, you can definitely just put them in the refrigerator and use them right away. And you won't have to use these jars with the rings on them and waste those. These work really good also. These are not to be used for canning though. We don't want to use those when we're using it for our pressure canner or for the water bath canner. That is a no-no with that one. You want the metal ones like that I just showed you there. So I believe I have showed you everything that I've got here. Look forward to my series of canning. I can't wait to get started into it. And I'm going to reach out to my sister and see if she might come down and help me string some beans this year. I know I'm going to get the answer that I'm looking for from that. So I hope you've enjoyed this content. And if you like this video, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. It puts me in the algorithms of YouTube and get the video out there to more people that might want to see this video and learn how to can. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. I can't wait to start canning, and we'll get some of those recipes out there, and I want you to try them. I'd love to hear from you how yours turned out. Bye-bye now.